Good morning, folks. You're watching Good Morning Sri Lanka on MTV Sports. It's a lovely Monday morning, the 12th of November 2012, and it's nice to start off our morning with you, and hopefully you'll have a great week ahead as well. Now, starting off, let's take a look at some of the headlines and the stories on the paper. This story obviously has been taking the headlines of probably all the papers in the recent 3 or 4 days. The Walikada prison, mayhem, I would call it. Big chaos there, and the headlines read, phone calls under scrutiny. An inquiry is taking place looking into the mobile communications of STF and prisons department officers to assess the elements which instigated the prison riot minutes after the STF concluded a massive search. And also inquiries are being made as to how there was a trishaw and a van that came across right after this happened and to the aid of the prisoners. So obviously there has been some kind of communication from within the prisons, and there's a special team that is investigating on this as well. Now, just a look at the prison riot timeline. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this, but it started off with about 5:35 when inmates of L Hall and Chapel Ward took control of the prison complex by breaking into the armory of the prison, and it went on right until about 9 o'clock, after a lot of chaos, where 35 people were injured in total, 12 STF officials, 8 prison officers and 15 inmates, and the recorded amount of deaths unfortunately is mentioned as 27 deaths. So that's a bit of development on that story as well. Moving on, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka has decided, or rather handed over their resolution, BASL resolution, to be handed over to MR and the Speaker today. 8 resolutions passed by the Bar Association of Sri Lanka expressing deep concern over the impeachment motion against the Chief Justice and urging the reconsideration of the move is to be handed over to the President and the Speaker today. So BASL resolution is to be handed over to MR. And also a bit about politics and the local arena. Democratic National Alliance MPs Tira Nalas and Arjuna Rantunga are to take a stand on the budget independently. Now, as we all know, last week they handed in their resignation, but what they're saying is that the DNA leader has not really accepted the resignation and has not responded to the resignation letters that they have received. So they had not received any letter from former Army Commander and DNA leader Sarath Fonseca, but they're expected to take a stand on the budget independently and independent of the DNA today. And also a news story, Deepawali holiday. The provincial authorities in Central and Sabargamu provinces have declared today as a special holiday in the Tamil schools in the 2 provinces in view of the Hindu festival of Deepawali. So the Central and Sabargamu province schools will be getting a special holiday today in the Tamil schools in lieu of the Hindu festival. So there we go. Those are some of the stories that's been happening on the front page. Moving on to some business news. It's all about the budget. Budget joy for SMEs, tears for supermarkets. Now, support for small and medium enterprises and slapping new taxes on supermarkets, bringing in the biggest revenue of rupees 5.25 billion is the talk of the town among the public sector and the private sector. And most analysts noted that SME sector has been identified as critical to get fresh support, as it is widely considered as the backbone of the economy. And what it's saying is that there's a lot of advantages in terms of support for the SMEs, but unfortunately supermarket trade, which is also something that's really catching on, is not too happy with the budget and the policies that have been proposed by it. Now, also another analysis on the budget. Import tax makes vehicles unaffordable for the middle class. The government's decision to maintain a 200% tax on vehicle imports represents a policy failure. Now, some analysts are saying that it's a policy failure in terms of meeting the needs of middle income citizens seeking to affordably purchase a vehicle. And that's a criticism of the budget again, once again. A few different contrasting stories as well, but those are some of the business stories. Moving on with sports. Now in football, we had a late goal from from Zeko to give former champions Manchester City a win over the Spurs. Champions Manchester City came from behind with 2 goals and a late goal by the substitute Edin Dzeko to beat Tottenham Hotspur 2-1 and maintain their unbeaten start in the Premier League yesterday. Now the Spurs, who had won their previous 3 away matches, went ahead and they were very confident meeting the Manchester City players, but then again they played a champions outfit and they played a very good game. So pictures show the final score, which was 2-1 in favour of Man City. And moving on with rugby, New Zealand managed to beat Scotland with a scoreline of 51-22 to open their European tour. Now, a New Zealand side mixing experienced heads and a lot of changes in their side as well. There were 10 changes in their side, my mistake, from the team who drew 18 all with Australia last month. But they somehow managed to pull through against Scotland, 51-22, opening match of the European tour. And New Zealand side mixing experienced heads and fledgling internationals underlined their strength in depth, without ever hitting top gear to overrun Scotland 51-22 in their opening European tour match yesterday. Now the New Zealand side has really looked to be, really being very consistent right after their World Cup victory as well, and they've not really given any chance for any team to dominate in their matches, and they're doing a lot in terms of developing their new players as well. So that's good news for those All Black fans. A lot of you all are probably, those who are interested in rugby. But there again, New Zealand beat Scotland 51-22 in the opening European tour. Now, an interesting story once again in the international section. This might really interest you. The world's longest married couple has been, awarded a certificate of achievement. That's quite interesting. I guess it is an achievement in itself, where they have stayed married for 87 years. Now, in an age where few marriages endure the test of time, 107-year-old Karam and his wife Katari have proven that happily ever after is a possibility. The couple, who have 8 children and 28 grandchildren, have lived in wedded bliss for 87 years. So there we go. Pictures on the screen show the lovely couple who've been married for 87 years and they've been awarded a certificate of achievement. There we go, folks. Something for you to think about. 87 years and still, going strong. And the quote says, "I've been told laughing makes you live longer. My wife is still alive, so it must have worked. I love her so much and I want to spend another 80 years by her side." That's a quote by the husband, who is 107 years old as of now. And laughing apparently makes you live longer, so I guess you should laugh a bit more and live life. So those are some of the stories that's been coming across to you from the papers. Now we'll take a short commercial break, but just before we do that, let me remind you that within these few days we'll be focusing a lot about violence against women. We'll have more of that in a short break. Good morning once again and welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka on MTV Sports. Now in the studio we have Mrs. Shamala Gomez, who is a lawyer who is very actively working on eradicating human rights issues and also gender-based violence. Good morning to you, ma'am.
Good morning.
Yes, and if you noticed, we've been focusing a lot about violence against women and gender-based inequalities and how we can probably get rid of that right throughout the past week as well. And we're doing that simply because it's such an important issue that we really need to address. And the 25th of this month is the day that has been classified by the United Nations as the official day to eradicate gender-based violence. And today we're going to move on with that topic and touch upon some of the areas that we might have missed out in the past few days. Now I believe that you are a lawyer who is working on really actively promoting gender equality and also trying to reduce gender-based violence. Now, if I might ask you, what exactly is the work you do and how did you get into moving forward with the work you do at the moment?
Well, I used to work at the university as a lecturer, and there I started research on violence against women, and maybe for the last 15 years I've been working in this area. And also I think one aspect that I've been focusing on is on sexual harassment in the workplace, which is also another form of gender-based violence. So in terms of interest, I think it has been a long-term interest, and there's much to be done, and that's one reason that I actually am working on this in this area. And although many people think that it really is not a problem in this country, I think it's a problem, and as you mentioned, that it is something that is very important, and the fact that we as activists, and there are many of us who do this work, try to do what we can, whether it be research or whether it be actually working actively on the field in trying to create awareness among women about the issue, and also among men, actually, working with men as well, because we tend to see men as perpetrators, and if we say that they're perpetrators, then we also need to work with them on this issue. So really those are the things that really sparked off my interest, and it's something that I'd like to continue to work in the future as well.
Right, okay. And also talking about violence in general, taking a look at domestic violence and also violence in the corporate workplace, what are the solutions in your opinion that are available to women to actually stop this kind of violence happening?
Okay, for domestic violence, Mevan, we have a law on domestic violence now. Since 2005, we have a law, and basically it allows for a woman to seek relief from a court, asking for a protection order against the perpetrator. So you have that recourse where you can actually go to a court or a magistrate and ask them for a protection order, which makes sure that you are protected from the abuser. So that is one form of relief. When it is sexual harassment, did you mention sexual harassment?
Yes, we can talk about that.
The sexual harassment, there too we have laws in the country, and I think many people don't realize that sexual harassment is a criminal offense in this country. Since 1995, we have had a law on sexual harassment. So there are many forms of redress available, and I think one of the things that we need to concentrate is on creating awareness about these laws, because many people are unaware of the laws. It could be the lawyers themselves, and I don't hesitate to say that, because there are many lawyers in this country who don't work in this field specifically, but are really unaware of the criminal law of the country, and the fact that there are many that impact on women, and that because they are harmed in very serious ways, and that is why we have sort of changed the criminal laws to actually address the issue, and so that women do have recourse under the law.
Now it's interesting that you mentioned that there's a gap in awareness, and there's a lack of awareness rather. And talking about effectiveness, as a legal officer, how effective do you think that these laws are in place, but the implementation of it, talking from the perspective of a legal officer, how effective are these, and are people actually making use of this?
I think the laws, we need a framework, and for that the state has put in a framework of laws, as you mentioned, on violence against women. So we have very good laws. For example, we have a very good law on rape, we have a good law on incest, we have a good law on sexual harassment. But as I said, when it comes to awareness and then to implementation of the law, that is where we fail, because to implement a law you need many people working together, and that is what we lack. That is what we lack, because, for example, you need to know that police officers need to know what their duties are if there's a situation of violence. Similarly, doctors, the medical profession needs to get involved, because when there is some kind of allegation of assault or rape or abuse, you would go to a doctor who would actually certify and say, look at your injuries and put it down on a piece of paper. They need to know how to write down those injuries, because a medico-legal report can become a crucial piece of evidence in a court of law in terms of, say, for example, proving a rape. So these are very important documents, and medical profession also needs to know that their evidence counts. Similarly, the judiciary, then you have the lawyer.